Look, guys, I'm just going to tell you straight up. If this signal confirms, even I'm going to be a little bit scared. And I'm being genuine about that as we look into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, Meta, looking into some stuff on AMC and GME, seeing those turn down. The thing is, the signal that I'm talking about as we start up this video is if this daily is able to cross. Now, for tomorrow, we still got to do some technical analysis. We do have those daily expected moves. We do have 482.60 to the upside, and we do have 460.10 to the downside. So you notice this has really spread out for the Qs, and I'm really worried about the Qs because they have a lot of implied volatility going into tomorrow, which tells you we can see some rip around moves. So this is what I'm really paying attention to, because if this right here crosses over, that's going to go into negative territory, and we could see something pretty bad as that dollar has started to bottom out. We'll talk about the dollar a little bit towards the end of this video, but if you tuned in live to our live show this morning, you knew that we were saying the dollar was bottoming with some kind of 4-hour divergence, and that proved to be some upside. So that insider selling coming in, and we noticed that hitting a little bit here today. So we have to see what's going to happen going forward. So let's start off with the SPY. Once again, just looking at the same signal, I guess a lot of people would be talking about some kind of double top, right? Something up in these areas. Okay, that makes total sense, because if this were to curl down, that's still pretty close to negative territory. I'm still a little bit more worried about the tech stocks out there with how much implied volatility there is going into tomorrow. So for those daily expected moves for the SPY, we do have 565.80 to the upside. We do have 550.80 to the downside. Notice this too. These are right outside of that weekly expected move. So this area is going to be very important. Where would we overall stating we could pull back to in order to see that overall 2-hour pullback really proven here? It was down towards this little box in here. Okay, so we are heading down to that level. I know everyone's going to be caught up with Nvidia earnings. Obviously, we have to talk about Nvidia with that earnings as of right now. I'm just going to assume that that's most of why this post-market is coming down here. But that's not the only thing we have for tomorrow. We have GDP coming out, and that is supposed to double from the previous. That's right. We're supposed to, last time we saw like a 1.4, and that is supposed to double and go up to about 2.8. We'll see what happens with that come morning time. So that's going to be very, very important as we go down towards a weekly and a daily expected move. Don't expect it to be just, hey, this curls down. It can do that, right? We should pay attention if this just curls down on this MACD. That can mean negativity is coming. So that is something to pay attention to for sure. But don't think they'll make it that easy, okay? There will be moments for bounces in, if this is just going to turn down, there will be bounces in that turn down. And then if this is going to recover, we're going to see some kind of turnaround here. So what are we paying attention to on the shorter time frames? Really looking at this 2-hour chart, we can notice what? We are still in positive territory. I want to make that very clear at this moment. You are still in positive territory. And a lot of the time, even if you go slightly into negative territory and you turn back up, where would you be? Positive again. Okay, so more so the signal that we're looking for an actual top. Do we see overall topping signals that can roll over the dollar here? No. Now, you don't need them all of the time. Right, we don't need them all of the time, but a very obvious signal usually pops its head up at the top, and I'm leaning towards something kind of like this. Now, that doesn't have to prove itself. It's just an idea to keep in your head. On this channel, we trade like water, so we like to talk about multiple scenarios, and I think that's your bullish one. This downside, we see a good GDP, and that starts to build back up over time, and then you have to worry about September 6th when we get jobs data. Remember this. Did the Fed say that they were paying attention to Nvidia earnings? No. What did the Fed say they are paying attention to and how they would have to react? Jobs data. What date does the jobs data come out? September 6th. So I think that would be very important. Now, we'll pay attention to the signals down in this area. We'll look at 30-minute charts. We'll see if there's some kind of turnaround coming. As of right now, we don't have that turnaround. Okay, so as that 30-minute goes negative, more bad price action happens. Negative territory, bad thing. So right here, this bar right here says no more room for upside. If you're confused about how to follow the signals, I highly encourage you get the course that's down in the description. It's literally going to be 90% off just for a couple more days, literally just a few more days. This is the last time it will be sold at this price point. So I just want to make sure that is very clear for everyone. The technical indicators course will really help you out with these things. And if you want to learn how to swing trade, we might have a swing trade showing up for us very soon. As of right now, you got to say, hey, what was this? Maybe some kind of double bottom happening. Ooh, that could take off. The only problem is, what if this is some kind of cup and handle that's proving itself right now? So we'll pay attention to these levels. This level is going to be very important. Make sure you're subscribed so that we can talk about some technical analysis in the morning while we are live watching that, how that opens up for Nvidia. Now, as we switch over back to the Qs, I just want you to notice we had the divergences. Those said they were going up. What happened? We crossed down on this MACD with this green bar right here. But these red bars in here should be enough to say, okay, we are heading into negative territory. From this point forward, there was no reason for upside. And I want to be very clear about that. Let your signals do the work for you. And that's something that we try to say a lot on this channel as well. Let the signals tell you what to do. This said, hey, we could recover. And then that was given away saying, hey, we might reach down and find some more buyers and then recover. That didn't happen, so you don't have to react in any way. You just know that the direction was down for the time being. So I think that that's very important to point out here. We already kind of gave those daily expected moves for tomorrow. I just want to go over them again because they're very, very wide. We noticed that we have 482.60 to the upside and 460.10. There is almost 50%. There's almost 50% implied volatility for tomorrow for the Qs. So do expect some rip around moves. That's what we can expect. And then we can say if that ends up by the end of the day being down in this area, watch out for the next day, because if you're crossing over this daily chart on the Qs, I would really be paying attention to that because you're very, very close to going negative. This means when this does happen, I just want to be very clear about this as well. When this does happen on any other chart, if you're looking at a 30-minute or something like that, what would you say was going to happen? Well, we're going to test a low, maybe go make a new one. What's the big problem with going to make a new low? You'd break through that channel and maybe you're creating a downward channel now. You would be for sure going into that negative trend if that happens. So very key time to pay attention. Doesn't mean it has to head to the downside. There's always bullish and bearish cases. I'm still leaning towards another trap to the upside. We'll see if that's going to come to fruition. And I think GDP could do something like that. So we'll pay attention to it. As we look over into things like Apple, again, we have to pay attention to daily crossovers. I know we don't talk about dailies a terribly often amount, right? We talk about them on Saturdays, but it's good to note this during the trading hour. If you see that crossed, you're like, okay, it needs to curl up today, right? If this crosses, you would say Apple needs to curl back up today on those shorter time frames. And if something like a 2-hour is not able to fully curl back up, well, then maybe this divergence here had something to say about Apple. Maybe this divergence right here had something to say about Apple. We see the divergence on the MACD, on the R side at the same time, not looking like the best divergence in the world, but it might tell you when a daily is going to cross over. Apple, as of this moment, not seeing a ton of weakness in the post market. We'll pay attention to that in the morning with this type of signal, but it's quick to understand, right? It's good to understand how to use these indicators. That's going to be in the courses down in your description. You will gain a great amount of knowledge, stuff that people do not talk a lot about in their courses. I've taken plenty of courses in order to get to where I'm at, and I haven't used a lot of the info in those courses. My course is set up so every single thing that you are going to learn about will be useful in some way to you. I guarantee that. So Apple, watch as this thing, because if that curls over on a daily chart, that's going to be bad. But if that 2-hour can curl back up, hey, positivity, maybe this was a trap. We'll look out for that trap behavior in the morning as we pay attention to the dollar, as we pay attention to volatility, as we pay attention to those PCC levels. Tesla, just behaving terribly, but is this out of a range from going for another positive move? Not necessarily. But as this keeps leaking down and down, notice that it's relatively controlled. I want you to notice how it's relatively controlled. If I do this type of angle, right, let's take the very top and go to the very bottom here, and I take that angle, and then I pull that across. Is this as dramatic as this downfall? No, so it's relatively controlled, which means if it is in some way controlled, we still have to be paying attention to upside. What would the bullish case here be? That 2-hour crosses up, simple swing trade. We have a swing trade course down in the description, still 90% off for just a couple of days. As we look into a 30-minute, things start to add up a little bit, right? So we can look at Tesla and say, okay, things on the 30-minute are starting to add up a little bit. This is saying, hey, I have a divergence down here, but it's really, really flat on the MACD, and it's just barely up on the RSI. So that means what do I have to do? Well, if I'm in this play even right now, maybe in the morning I have to manage that trade in case something bad happens. We're in negative territory. Bad things happen down there. And this is a small time frame. So if that curls down, and then we would say that's really, really bad. But if that curls back up, maybe that's a good sign. And that's what we'll be paying attention to tomorrow after we get that GDP data. So tune in tomorrow live. Make sure you're subscribed. And thank you so much for being subscribed to this channel. Hopefully you're following these signals. All right, Amazon. This one here, it looked great until it didn't, right? We fell over again. You crossed over on that MACD. You tried to cross back up. You crossed over again, telling you downside is the most likely option. At the end of the day, you see this little curl up and you go, okay, this has to go to the upside now. The only problem is, where are you at with this MACD positioning? We talk about the positioning MACD, the positioning of the MACD in the course, and boom, right there, you're very far away with no reversal signal. Is there a divergence here? No, there is not. So that would tell me there's not a lot of probabilities adding up to, hey, this is going to see some kind of rapid upward move go into a positive trend. That's just what's being said here for Amazon. And I want to be very clear about Amazon as well. Look where its MACD is at on the daily scale. It's in negative territory. It never went to positive territory here. What did we do? We reacted in a V shape. We went to that breakdown area. We got a little excited, and then we give it up. So if this crosses over, what's the most likely thing to happen? Well, we test in these lows, or we go make a new one. What's the big problem with making a new one? Well, if I pull across our trend line, let me make sure that's still leveled up here. Let me pull across that trend line. Well, if you break through that trend line, that would be a little bit bad, and you can start to see a negative trend over time here. So this is going to be very, very key tomorrow, and that's why I'm really trying to double down on it and show you some things. Nvidia is the same scenario. We were really piling up in this area. Everything looks good. Notice this. Everyone always asking me about earnings. Why do I not play earnings? Why do I suggest playing after earnings, playing other stocks during earnings? It's because you never know which way this is going to go. This is a 50-50 flip. And if you want me to prove it to you right now, these numbers are green, but the price is down. So that tells me one thing. It does not matter what happens in these numbers. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, right? But it matters this, how people take that reaction. And it is a 50-50 flip because you just saw two green numbers, but I'm guessing one bad thing was in that data, and guess what? The stock goes down. That's why I don't like to play earnings. That's why I suggest you start to learn a little bit about some things we talk about in the course as far as what to do around earnings. We talked about those things during the live video. If you have questions about earnings, please come into the chat and ask. If you've been beat up by earnings before multiple times throughout this year, please come in the chat and ask what our opinion is on earnings, because it will really help you out. Practice patience during earnings. It's something that I did. If you want the hard truth, I mean, we're going to take a little sidebar here. But if you want the hard truth, I was long on Microsoft in this area. I was long on Microsoft in this area. At the end of yesterday, I just got a bad feeling, and I said, why am I doing this? Nvidia earnings is going to decide everything. Am I really willing to put my money in a basket of one stock decides which way the whole market goes? No, I'm not willing to do it. And what does this look like? A complete breakdown through the channel, a retest, and then we go down even lower. We can always make divergences and things like that. We'll talk about that as they form. But for now, I got out of that play because I just said to myself, let me mitigate my risk. Let me be more patient here. Let me not put all my eggs into a basket that is only going to be decided by one thing, which is a 50-50 flip. I'm not here to gamble. I'm here to take highly probable moves. That's my job. All right, so that's just something key to talk about with Nvidia. Now, with Nvidia, this 2 hour, we talked about this a lot, okay? We talked about how it's overall moving sideways, starting to dip down even more. We were talking about how it needs to get really close to the center line. All of that happened, and then we don't get that curl up with the earnings. That's the bummer with earnings. If you don't have earnings here, some buyers step in, momentum takes over, and you see an upside move. But earnings is something that really messes with stocks. At this moment, if that 2 hour still, if that appeared down here and that curled up into positive, that's where it would be. It'd be positive territory. So all of this could be doing what we said before, which was what? Our overall take on Nvidia was we are going up to this level. We might create this as a left shoulder. We might see this dip all the way down into the bottom of our zone, and then we see that climb back up and create a right shoulder. What if that still comes to fruition, right? We still get some data in the morning. Let's pay attention to the signals. As of right now, very negative signals. As we look into a 30-minute, this thing's just going to drop completely off in the morning. There's not a lot to do on this 30-minute. So we'll pay attention to it in the morning. Please tune into the live video tomorrow morning. I know I'm having a little bit different tone tonight, but I just want to make sure people understand how risky earnings is and how much it really does help to know the signals and things like that. It's like if I was long on earnings back on August 14th and I said, I'm going to hold this through earnings. Well, this is a get out of jail free card. We can play with house money. Please, please come to the live video and ask how I like to play earnings if I'm going to play them. All right. AMD, this one dropping off dramatically as well. Now, why would that drop off? Well, because of what? Nvidia. This is directly tied to Nvidia. We have a 2 hour here that has turned down. It's never turned back up. This is why I've been being patient, waiting for the swing trade signal, seeing if there's some upside, holding on to my volatility play. Why was I holding on to my volatility play? We'll get to that in a moment as we're seeing some tests again of that 200, of that 50 area that we said to pay attention to. You have to get through that to see more of a squeeze. If we don't get through it, what happens? We downturn, okay? Now, am I still thinking that this is completely gone forever? I need to see more price action in the morning, all right? Meta, as we see here, trying to curl up on a 2 hour as well. So Meta was the one showing you the weakness in this area. Meta was seriously showing you when it really looks like it wants to cross and it just rejects. That is a rejection divergence, giving you a double top, telling you that that daily scale is going to roll over on the daily MACD. Did that happen? Yes, it did. So Meta is telling you that the most likely direction on the daily scale is down. It tells you that most likely over the next 2 weeks, Meta will be lower than this point. Now we have to see what GDP is and things like that. If this thing was just a blip and it needs to rotate back up. But right now, one of my other rules, not just to do with earnings, this takes into account another rule of mine, which is I never take calls on a stock that just crossed on its daily MACD. Why is that? Well, what momentum is better, 2 hour chart or a daily chart? A daily chart. A daily chart has more price action behind it, it has more volume behind it. So the most likely direction over the next 2 weeks for Meta is going to be down. And we have to see if that's able to carve out some kind of, higher low to actually head higher here, right? See if that's able to actually head higher. We'll pay attention to that going forward, but I just want you to see how that is curling over and share that little rule with you. As we look at a 2 hour, what can we take away from this? Once you see that divergence, what's the real bar that tells you that this was not going to go up and there's no reason for upside? It was all the way up here at 534. So 534 down said, no more reason for upside. This whole time we've been waiting for 2 hour signals to the upside, 2 hour signals to the upside. Did we ever see that? No. And if I was in some kind of 30-minute divergence play, what did I have to do today? I had to manage my trade, so I shouldn't be losing any more money going into this. Microsoft, as we look at that, actually holding up a little flaggy here, just a little bit. Looks like the post market went away. I wanted to see what that was doing in the post market. But for the most part, what do we need to see here? A 2 hour curl up. Did we ever get that? No. Now, I told you that this was one that I was in. I want to show you why I was in this. It's because these are the weakening signals that we're looking for. It's this right here. You see this coming down. We see some moves up. We get that tiny little cross up and I go, yes, let's go. And then we get up to this area and I started to think myself while I was doing one of our closing streams and I was saying, oh no, maybe I should not be trying to make money during a week where we're going to see more volatility due to one thing, and that's Nvidia earnings, so no thank you. And then that crosses over. If I wasn't out of the play here, with my gut feeling, I'm out of the play here completely. And even though this whipped back around, I'm just gonna guess that Microsoft's gonna be coming down a little bit, but we can still pay attention to the signals for Microsoft. Weirdly enough, Microsoft is one of the ones that look a little bit better. You do see a divergence on the 30-minute, on the MACD, on the RSI at the same time down there. Just want you to be aware of that. Microsoft one that held up a little bit better. We'll see how this opens up, as I can't see that post-market. I'm sure I could turn on the extended hours and see if that thing's coming a little bit lower. It looks like just a little bit lower, right? So we'll pay attention to it, but in the morning, we got to pay attention to that data, and I think that's important to remind you of. As we look over into things like AMC, this thing really breaking down now. Not able to confirm that move up on this MACD. So I'd be paying attention to this because this is another close below that 200. It means there could be some more time before this thing turns up again. Remember the main signal for AMC we're looking for, a daily turn up of that 2 hour. Are we getting close to doing something crazy? No, we're not. 551 is what we need to get above to see some kind of gamma squeeze. As far as it goes for GameStop, you would say that this is even kind of the beginning of the worst part of it. Right? You're seeing this on a daily chart. Now, there is a silver lining here, and that is if this can dink off that 200, use that as support, you might have some sort of double bottom in here. No real divergence, but you do have it a little bit on the MACD. So if this is able to turn around, maybe with something else coming around the corner, maybe this is one earnings that ends up being a good thing, as Chewy did see a pretty good day today. So we'll pay attention to that going forward. But as we wanted to go into the dollar, this is something that we were talking about a lot over the past few days. We said most likely what's going to happen. Actually, we said the 2 hour, I believe. We said the 2 hour. What would be nice from the 2 hour is give us that signal. Give us that signal. Give us that signal that you're going to bottom. What do we see here? Well, we get a little divergence, a little pop. We get another divergence down here, little pop. We get a double bottom where that has really started to taper, right? We're coming down. Then we taper off a little bit. Then we taper off completely, pretty much bottoming out with a double bottom. That goes into positive territory. That crosses up. That is a signal that we called out this morning saying the dollar has bottomed. And that's what it looks like at this point. It can always dip down, get another tag or something like that, go make a higher low, right? but we can pay attention to those type of things. As of right now, you also had a 4-hour divergence, a rejection divergence here for that double bottom, telling you, hey, I could go into positive territory, right? So this dollar bottoming here means some people were flying to cash for some reason today. And I think we're finding out what that reason was, right? Someone always knows before you do. That's why we pay attention to this type of behavior in the live show. That's why we try to teach people about it. I'm thinking about adding this. Maybe you can comment down below if you think that you would benefit from learning how to read into this and how I see it in a way that tells me when there is buying or selling behind the curtain, right? We can talk about those things as we look into relation with the PCC. Now, as we look over at volatility, this is going to be the last thing we're going to talk about here tonight. The 4 hour is what I said to pay attention to. If that curls out up, watch out, because there can be some pretty big volatility coming in. You notice that curl up. What happened on the next bar? A pretty big move for volatility. So as of right now, volatility just on the cusp of going positive on the 4 hour chart. The big signal to pay attention to here is on the daily chart. We told you that, hey, what was going to happen, right? Everyone's asking, volatility is going absolutely insane. Luke, what's going to happen? I'm seeing squeeze signals, is what I said. And guess what? We saw that squeeze. Hopefully you benefited from that. Thank you so much. Give yourself a thumbs up and pat on the back. Thank you if you're subscribed and you enjoyed some of that info about that squeeze that came, because now we said that would continue if this crossed over on the MACD. And guess what? It crossed over on the MACD. What happened? It continued. And then what did we say from there? We said, watch out, because if this thing breaks below the 200, you'll see more of a squeeze, but this is where you need to pay attention for a reaction right in between, right with that 50 and that 200, because this is a crash signal. So if you gain some steam by that 200, you can start to really ramp up the volatility from there. So the big signal to pay attention to here is that reaction from the 200 from the 50 area, and seeing if that can curl up on the MACD, seeing if that can get above the center line for the RSI. That's going to tell you, hey, the SPY is going to cross over on its MACD. The SPY is most likely going to see downside over the next few weeks. That is what this is saying, and I want you to be aware of it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. The main takeaway here being bad things are happening, and we need to still keep a level head, right? Bad things are happening, but we need certain signals to confirm for us to go, okay, momentum is really picking up to the downside. We have to keep a level head during times like this. It has really helped us out. Okay, it has really helped us out to keep a level head. Everyone was saying we're crashing, we're crashing, we're crashing, and we said short squeeze. So let's try to keep a level head. If we're actually going to go down, we are going to cross down on these daily MACDs. That is going to confirm. So do not be worried. You will see the signals if you just take your time with it and trade like water like we do on this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I really wanted to set aside some time to talk about some of this stuff with you guys. I think it's pretty important, and I wish you nothing but luck for the morning. Hopefully you come back in the morning so we can talk about some stock market analysis. If you have questions about the courses that are down in the description, please come to the live video and ask some questions. I'm not the only one that can answer them. Plenty of people in the chat can answer how those courses have really helped them. Even just the slight change of thinking with the MACD and the things I talk about with the MACD that you might not fully understand, that can really help you become a better trader, let alone the other 90% of the content there. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic night and short Fridays. I have a surprise for you tomorrow during the live show. I hope you see the end of this. I'm going to be pissed if you didn't, but I might have a picture to show you. All right. Peace out, guys. I'll talk to you guys later. See you guys in the morning.